We have now reached the halfway point of the college football season. Week 6 of college football best bets over here on the KC Sports Authority YouTube channel. This is another edition of. And let's get right into the game day gambles. Last week was another good week for us. A lot of fun games on that slate, as we talked about. It was a huge college football weekend. The Alabama-Georgia game I thought was very entertaining down to the wire. Alabama now best team in college football, maybe. I don't know. But that game was super entertaining. But I think overall, I mean, we had a ton of plays in last week's episode. If you didn't check it out, you should be checking these out weekly because we're helping you win some money. But last week, I think we went over half of our picks for sure, at least hit. I think we're close to 70% clip still on those plays. So let's see if we can do that again this week with the slate we have going. I want to start with Friday night college football. Syracuse on the road at number 25 UNLV opened up as a 6.5-point underdog. That line is sitting around 6.5, 7.5. UNLV, a newly ranked number 25 team in the country. In fact, they are tied with Texas A&M at 25. I've never seen that before, where both teams had the same amount of votes, so they split it. So technically, they're both 25 in the country. UNLV is a tough place to play on the road, but I think Syracuse is a very dynamic offense. Kyle McCord to me has been one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country when he's not turning the ball over. Had an ugly game in their loss, of course, but I think Kyle McCord's fantastic. So my first play of the weekend is Syracuse on the road to cover the 6.5 or the 7, if wherever you find it.
Hey, question.
Yes.
Did UNLV win against Kansas, or did they lose that game?
Oh, they definitely smoked us there in the fourth quarter.
Definitely. Thought I'd bring that up for all the fans out there.
Just about anybody that plays KU football in the fourth quarter is going to come out on top. And KU, of course, is 1-4 on their way to 1-5, as I will talk about later in this episode. But yes, UNLV top 25 team. Even despite not having their quarterback Matthew Sluka, their backup quarterback has been equally as impressive. They've got one of the 10 best wide receivers in the country in Ricky White, who had a monster game last week. So I think this is definitely a high-scoring game, but I like Syracuse's ability to put touchdowns up on the board.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to your first play of the week.
I like BC going into Virginia. I think they figured it out up there. They should get their quarterback this week. Looks like he's practicing again. So BC +1 at UVA. I think, like I said, I think O'Brien's figured it out. I think he's got them playing well. I think they go in there and keep it rolling, and they move on to 5-1.
I think you mentioned BC last week, but yeah, Bill O'Brien's been pretty solid at the college ranks. Good offensive coordinator at Alabama, and he's getting it turned around pretty quickly at Boston College. They've had some really, really close games. So I think as you're looking at Boston College the rest of this season, I'm pretty sure they have stayed within the coverage range on every single one. He keeps it tight. And he's a quality coach. So, yes, I like that play there. One of the bigger matchups on the day that has a large spread. We've talked about both teams before. I've talked about one of them that I don't trust their offense as much. They look better. And then this other team they're playing has one of the best defenses in the country and has for a long time. But that is Iowa on the road, 20.5-point underdog at Ohio State. I had Michigan State last week as my major upset pick, which didn't happen, and they were close to covering if they could have scored one more touchdown. Now, Iowa, we know, struggles to score the ball a lot, but they definitely make it as ugly as possible. Thoughts on this big matchup?
Same as what I said last week. You got to look at the total, right? It's a low total. So I said this about Kentucky. Didn't think Kentucky was going to win. That happened.
Yeah, impressive.
But we did think they were going to cover if everyone was listening last week because of that low total. So once again, if you think Iowa can get to 13, 14 points, they probably got a good chance of covering if that stays a little low total.
Yeah, again, that's why I think I like Iowa to cover on this one. Despite that they can't score as much as traditional teams, they've put up a lot of points this year. They themselves have been averaging close to 30 points a game. The most points they've given up all season is the 21 to Troy, held Iowa State to 19. But this is really their first tough matchup of the season, going up against one of the best teams in college football, a team in Will Howard that's got a lot of weapons around him. Great receiving core, great running back core again. A game that I think Ryan Day has to win to keep their hopes alive for the rest of the season. I think he's on a lot of pressure this year. But I like Iowa to cover. I think that defense, I mean, again, it's like what you said last week. I can't remember which team you mentioned this, but wouldn't be shocked if they, go up 7-3 by the end of the first quarter, and just keep this thing tight long enough. But then Ohio State, gets it going. But that's one of my other plays I like. What else you got?
The next play is going to be SMU grabbing a touchdown at Louisville. So this one jumped out at me. Look, I think on paper you got a very comparable matchup. Both offenses are good. You got SMU averaging 427 yards a game. Louisville slightly better at 44. The defenses are both solid. I think SMU has been very impressive. I think getting a touchdown here makes me feel pretty good. Louisville didn't look great against Notre Dame, and I think I've been very vocal that I don't think Notre Dame's that great of a team. So give me SMU here to keep it close and keep this within a touchdown.
Yeah, and I think Louisville, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to go back, but I'm pretty sure they were a 7.5-point dog last week, so they still covered. But yeah, that was one of our teams we liked as an upset team. But yeah, decent bounce back spot for them. I think SMU has been a pretty solid team this year, considering their schedule. Could be a high-powered offense game for sure. Let's go to
let's go to the Swamp. I think I really like UCF in this spot. I got this. I was talking before we started recording. I got this number at 1 when it first came out, which I loved. It's already moved to 3. I still don't hate it at 3. I think UCF is going to be pissed after what just happened at home versus Colorado. They have the 4th best offense in the country, 553 yards a game. Florida's defense is 228th in the nation. They're giving up 436 yards. So I'm going to take UCF to bounce back. They gave up 48 points, and even after doing that, they still only give up 337 yards a game. So I think they'll be back, ready to play. I think they go in the Swamp and get a win. I think we talked about it at the beginning of the year. UF is just not a great program this year.
Yeah, they're giving up points left and right. UCF scores points left and right. That is not a good combo. That's why this total is sitting at 61.5. I like that for sure too. Let's go to the Big 12. A team we talked about that just crapped the bed against Colorado 2 weekends ago that we mentioned, and that was Baylor losing in overtime. Baylor goes on the road to face a tough Iowa State team. That Iowa State's a double-digit favor right now. Minus 11.5, total set at 44.5. Iowa State, a top 20 team, top of the Big 12 right now. Does Baylor continue to bounce back and get their season on track, or is this Iowa State in a blowout?
This one's a pass for me on the spread. I am going to give Iowa State out later in my parlay for the week.
Okay. We'll save some of that talk for later. My next one I want to bring up was a team to bounce back from a disappointing loss, and that is Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to come out very upset that they could barely do anything against Kentucky this last week. And I was talking to a friend at work, and we were very pumped to watch that game first thing Saturday morning because I thought Kentucky was going to do what they did. I didn't expect them to go out and win it, but man, they kept that game ugly defensively for quite a while, made Ole Miss struggle. I think it pushed Jackson Dart out of the Heisman top 3 for now. So I think this is a great bounce back spot for them as a 9-point favorite on the road. I think they look to really just put up. I think they're going to try and put up 55 points this week to make up for that. So that's, again, Ole Miss has outside of that one game, they've pretty much been solid for us all year. So I'm going to roll with them again.
I agree. They will also be part of my parlay coming up.
Okay. Another SEC team I want to ask you about because it's a big spread. Tennessee, number 4th team in the country, big time offense. They've got a Heisman candidate quarterback on the road against a very tough Arkansas team that we've mentioned week after week that tends to keep the games close. Arkansas went on the road, beat Auburn. Arkansas played Oklahoma State near perfectly until they lost it there at the end, but they like to keep it close. But 13.5-point favorite here, 59.5 on the total there. Can Tennessee go on the road and win by double digits?
Well, Keegan, they're also part of the parlay. So you know what? Let me
I'm just jumping the gun on all of these. Let's just go straight to that.
My parlay of the week, teams I think can't lose that I think you can parlay together and feel pretty comfortable about are Arizona, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Tennessee. And if we don't think Miami has a horseshoe up their ass, Miami after what happened last week, because I still don't understand how that became no touchdown, but Thank God to the Canes fans it did, because football is always better when Miami's good.
So there, I just ruined the whole episode by picking all the games that I didn't know Greg had in his parlay, but that's
So,
okay. So we'll for sure post that parlay because yeah, I think that's a pretty solid one right there. All those teams are fantastic. What did you get on the total for that for the odds?
they bounced up since, but it was a little better than even money. So
Okay,
hopefully you'll get a little better than that now with people betting underdogs, hopefully.
sure. I like that. I think that's a good play there. Let's go to one of your next plays.
So I alluded to it before. I told you I would be doing it for the rest of the year if KU screwed me again, which they have. So I will no longer fall for it. I will lay the 3. I might lay 30. I'll lay whatever they want me to lay with Arizona State this week to beat that pitiful football team. I know a lot of people in Kansas listen to us. Stick to basketball. The run's over. We're done. We can go back to you being 1-10 every year in football. I'm fine with it. Let's
Oh
move on
yeah,
to basketball season, KU.
the fan base has been broken the last couple weeks. There's very little, if any, confidence that this season is recoverable. So yes, this will be the first time, and I will say this on record: I am not giving money to watch KU football hurt me again. The only thing I will say, because this happens almost every single week with KU football, one of these two combos, you can bet them all individually, you can parlay all three, or pick two of these three. Devin Neal, Daniel Highshaw, Luke Grimm, anytime touchdowns hit almost at 100% clip. It's like 90%. It feels like this is two weeks in a row. All three have scored a touchdown. So I very much like those TD plays every single week. But Jalen Daniels has yet to hit his over under has yet to hit the over on his passing yards in any game this season, and those continuously drop. It was plus 200 2 weeks ago, or plus money at 200 yards 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. Then it was plus money at 175, plus money at 155, and he still couldn't freaking hit it 3 weeks in a row. So yes, I am done hoping that they come out and win. So yes, from a betting perspective, the only thing I'm doing until they prove that their offense is capable is just those three guys getting into the end zone each week.
You know what else has dropped? The odds of this guy ever taking a snap on a Sunday.
Very much true. He might be back for another season next year, which coming into the year, everyone if we told you coming into the season Jalen Daniels would be back for next year, you'd be very confused because
Hey,
this was a guy that should have been a Heisman favorite, Heisman candidate, and oh my gosh, he can't play football.
if I was a KU football fan, which I'm glad I'm not only I would shove him through the portal. I wouldn't ask him to go to the portal. I'd push him through it.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk locally here on Jalen. What do you do with him? A lot of conversations been the way he handled his summer from the coaching aspect. There's been some talk on he spent a lot of time away from the team over the summer doing his own thing and how that's made a negative impact. But yeah, there's a lot of frustration here. Um, that's we've got our own episode that talks about KU football. You guys, if you want to go have some misery that are KU football fans, go check that out. But back to betting. Let's get into our games of the week. We've got two monster matchups this weekend. One Big Ten matchup, one SEC matchup. Let's start with Michigan, number 10 in the country, on the road at Washington. Washington currently, even though they are not a top 25 team, they are a 2.5-point favorite at home.
So when you look at this game, right, this is kind of something that I've talked about. You look for traps. I think a lot of people are going to look at this line and go, oh my God, they're giving me a gift on Michigan. Michigan's number 10 in the country. I'm getting points. Washington's only 3-2. This is a layup. Well, here's the thing. Washington's a great home team. And if you start digging in, Washington has a great offense. They put up 479 yards a game. You go to the defense, their defense is actually holding teams to less yards than Michigan. People probably don't realize that. 266 is what they're giving up. Have they played the quality of schedule Michigan has? No, I can concede that. They're at home. They are playing fairly well on both sides of the ball. The line screams at me. Take Washington.
I love it. Love it a lot. I said it last week. I still don't trust Michigan's offense with their quarterback play. They can't throw the ball. And if Donovan Edwards isn't going, which he's kind of been held intact for the most part through a lot of the season. Now their other running backs had a great, play in his stead. But Michigan just like even watching them against Minnesota this last week, that was a game they should have won handedly, easily, and they struggled to get that down. Washington on the other side, you look at them. Yes, their strength of schedule is not the best, but they haven't given up more than 19 points yet on the season, and Michigan struggles to get to 24. So if Washington can get 3 touchdowns up on the board, they've got a really good shot of pulling this one off. So I think I'm there with you. While everyone else is going to look at Michigan being the number beside them as the team that should go out there, I like what you're saying there. Let's go the other side and take Washington. Um, Other big matchup, you got Mizzou, top 10 team in the country, number 9, on the road at Texas A&M, another top 25 team. Very interesting matchup. Mizzou, depending on where you're getting them right now, I see them as a 2-point dog on the road. Um, I said it last week. I think Mizzou's one of the 5, 6 best teams in the country, most consistent teams on all sides of the ball. 2-point underdog on the road. Is this similar to Michigan, Washington?
To me, it is. Yes. So here, once again, you got to dig a little deeper. Now, I was pissed when we got into our week 2 episode, if you heard me, about A&M and the way they played against Notre Dame. The quarterback looked like he's never seen a football in his life. However, this is Missouri. They beat Murray State. They beat Buffalo at home. They came back to squeak by BC, and they played Vandy. They haven't played a road game yet. They're going to A&M, who is, in my opinion, battle tested. They played Notre Dame. They played at Florida, who, like I said, not a great team, but still on the road in the swamp, right? And they played Arkansas last week at home. Tough game against a tough team, and they won by 4. They're favored by 2. I think people are going to line up to bet Missouri based on those stats, and I think they're going to be very disappointed come 6:30. Give me A&M as my play of the week.
Originally coming into this episode, I was on the other side. I saw Missouri as a 2-point road dog and thought, nah, they got this. But after listening to you here, I think I am going to change my stance. Looking at the scores there, yeah, they barely got by Vanderbilt, which you should be able to start your 4-string quarterback and pull that one out. A&M might be catching them at the right time. It's like 2 teams, even though Mizzou's 4-0, it's been a real shaky 4-0. A&M's kind of started to raise up themselves. So it's going to be a really good matchup. And I think, yeah, the more I'm listening to you here, it's the public versus the experts. And I'm going to go with what you're saying there. Trust the experts. Okay. Those are all the games I really want to get into. Any other plays you have from a parlay perspective? Any questions you want to cover?
No, I think that's it for me for this week on college. It's not my favorite slate of the year. I'll say that. It's kind of a difficult slate. So I really ought to dig in to find stuff. But I think you're safe if you play Washington and you play A&M. I think at worst you're going to go 1-1, but I think you might go 2-0. Might be worth a parlay as well.
So then let me ask you this as a betting tip of the week. What is the thought process you should have when the slate of games is not as desirable? Like I think some people have the itch to make a bet no matter what. So what do you say to the people that are like, hey, these games this week just don't intrigue me as much? What's your thought process and strategy in digging deep for winning plays?
If the slate doesn't intrigue you, first thing you should do, don't bet just to bet if you're looking to make money, right? But what I do is I go through and I try to look for what you said a few minutes ago. I try to look for the sides that I feel the public is just going to line up to bet, and then I go against them. And for me that week, the 2 that jumped out this week, the 2 that jumped out were A&M and Washington.
Perfect. I think that's great. Well, we'll end it there. Again, if you guys have any questions each week, we've said this every episode. If you've got questions on games, any games you want to get some takes on, feel free to hit us up. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of those at KCSA Pod. You can send us in any plays you like. Would love to see any parlays that you want to throw out there. Anything like that, feel free to send us our way. Make sure you do come back and check us out for our NFL Week 5 Best Bets, as that episode will also be up not too long after this one. So if you're watching here on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button below. Picked up about 40 subscribers in the last 2 weeks from some of our sports betting content. So that's exciting. Would love to see that continue to rise as we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. And I think each week we put out winning plays that'll help us get there. So if you are following along with us, send us in your winning plays. I would like to see some of those betting slips that are definitely turning in your favor. And maybe we can include some of those each week here on the episode. But that'll wrap it up for this one. I always appreciate you guys checking us out, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.